The Ghaznavid dynasty was a Persianate Muslim dynasty of Turkic Mamluk origin, at their greatest extent ruling large parts of Iran, much of Transoxiana, and North India from 977–1186. The dynasty was founded by Sabuktigin, upon his succession to rule of Ghazna after the death of his father-in-law, Alptigin, who was a breakaway ex-general of the Samanid Empire from Balkh, north of the Hindu Kush in Greater Khorasan. Although the dynasty was of Central Asian Turkic origin, it was thoroughly Persianized in terms of language, culture, literature, and habits, and hence is regarded by some as a Persian dynasty, rather than Turkic. Sabuktigin's son, Mahmud of Ghazni, declared independence from the Samanid Empire and expanded the Ghaznavid Empire to the Amu Darya, the Indus River and the Indian Ocean in the east, and to Ray and Hamadan in the west. Under the reign of Masud I, the Ghaznavid dynasty began losing control over its western territories to the Seljuk dynasty after the Battle of Dandanakan, resulting in a restriction of its holdings to modern-day Afghanistan, Punjab, Pakistan, and Balochistan. In 1151, Sultan Bahram Shah lost Ghazni to the Ghurid king Ala al-Din Hussein. Rise to power. Two military families arose from the Turkic slave guards of the Samanid Empire, the Simjurids and Ghaznavids, who ultimately proved disastrous to the Samanids. The Simjurids received an appanage in the Kohistan region of eastern Khorasan. The Samanid generals Alptigin and Abu al-Hasan Simjuri competed for the governorship of Khorasan and control of the Samanid Empire by placing on the throne emirs they could dominate after the death of Abd al-Malik I in 961. His death created a succession crisis between his brothers. A court party instigated by men of the scribal class, civilian ministers rather than Turkic generals, rejected the candidacy of Alptigin for the Samanid throne. Mansur I was installed instead, and Alptigin prudently retired to south of the Hindu Kush, where he captured Ghazna and became the ruler of the city as a Samanid authority. The Simjurids enjoyed control of Khorasan south of the Amu Darya, but were hard-pressed by a third great Iranian dynasty, the Buyid dynasty, and were unable to survive the collapse of the Samanids and the subsequent rise of the Ghaznavids. The struggles of the Turkic slave generals for mastery of the throne with the help of shifting allegiance from the court's ministerial leaders both demonstrated and accelerated the Samanid decline. Samanid weakness attracted into Transoxiana the Karluks, a Turkic people who had recently converted to Islam. They occupied Bukhara in 992, establishing in Transoxania the Karakanid Khanate. After Alptigin's death in 993, Abu Ishaq Ibrahim, followed by his slave Sabuktigin, took the throne. Sabuktigin's son Mahmud of Ghazni made an agreement with the Karakanid Khanate whereby the Amu Darya was recognized as their mutual boundary. Domination. Sabuktigin, son-in-law of Alptigin and founder of the Ghaznavid Empire, began expanding it by capturing Samanid and Kabul Shahi territories, including most of what is now Afghanistan and part of Pakistan. The 16th-century Persian historian, Firashta, records Sabuktigin's genealogy as descended from the Sasanian emperors. Sabuktigin, the son of Dukan, the son of Kozul Hakam, the son of Kozul Arslan, the son of Firuz, the son of Yezdijid, king of Persia. However, modern historians believe this was an attempt to connect himself with the history of Old Persia. After the death of Sabuktigin, his son Ismail claimed the throne for a temporary period, but he was defeated and captured by Mahmud in 998 at the Battle of Ghazni. Mahmud's son Sabuktigin in 997, Mahmud, another son of Sabuktigin, succeeded the throne, and Ghazni and the Ghaznavid dynasty have become perpetually associated with him. He completed the conquest of the Samanid and Shahi territories, including the Ismaili kingdom of Multan, Sindh, as well as Sambuwayha territory. By all accounts, the rule of Mahmud was the golden age and height of the Ghaznavid Empire. Mahmud carried out 17 expeditions through northern India to establish his control and set up tributary states, and his raids also resulted in the looting of a great deal of plunder. He established his authority from the borders of Ray to Samarkand, from the Caspian Sea to the Yamuna. During Mahmud's reign, the Ghaznavids settled 4,000 Turkmen families near Farana in Khorasan. By 1027, due to the Turkmen raiding neighboring settlements, the governor of Tus, Abu al-Harith Arslan Jadab, led military strikes against them. The Turkmen were defeated and scattered to neighboring lands. Although, as late as 1033, Ghaznavid governor Tash Farash executed 50 Turkmen chiefs for raids into Khorasan, the wealth brought back from the Mahmud's Indian expeditions to Ghazni was enormous, and contemporary historians give glowing descriptions of the magnificence of the capital and of the conqueror's munificent support of literature. Mahmud died in 1030. Decline. Twin sons of Mahmud. Mahmud left the empire to his son Muhammad, who was mild, affectionate, and soft. His brother, Masood, asked for 3 provinces that he had won by his sword, but his brother did not consent. Masood had to fight his brother, and he became king, blinding and imprisoning Muhammad as punishment. Masood was unable to preserve the empire, and following a disastrous defeat at the Battle of Dandanakan in 1040, he lost all the Ghaznavid lands in Iran and Central Asia to the Seljuks, plunging the realm into a time of troubles. His last act was to collect all his treasures from his forts in hope of assembling an army and ruling from India. But his own forces plundered the wealth, and he proclaimed his blind brother as king again. The 2 brothers now exchanged positions. Muhammad was elevated from prison to the throne, while Masood was consigned to a dungeon after a reign of 10 years and was assassinated in 1040. Masood's son, Madud, was governor of Balkh, and in 1040, after hearing of his father's death, came to Ghazni to claim in his kingdom. He fought with the sons of the blind Muhammad and was victorious. However, the empire soon disintegrated and most kings did not submit to Madud. In a span of 9 years, 4 more kings claimed the throne of Ghazni. Ibrahim in 1058, Masood's son Ibrahim, the great calligrapher who wrote the Quran with his own pen, became king. Ibrahim re-established a truncated empire on a firmer basis by arriving at a peace agreement with the Seljuks and a restoration of cultural and political linkages. Under Ibrahim and his successors, the empire enjoyed a period of sustained tranquility. Shorn of its western land, it was increasingly sustained by riches accrued from raids across northern India, where it faced stiff resistance from Indian rulers such as the Paramar of Malwa and the Gahadvala of Kannauj. He ruled until 1098. Masood III became king for 16 years, with no major event in his lifetime. Signs of weakness in the state became apparent when he died in 1115, with internal strife between his sons ending with the ascension of Sultan Bahram Shah as a Seljuk vassal. Bahram Shah defeated his brother Arslan for the throne at the Battle of Ghazni in 1117. Sultan Bahram Shah was the last Ghaznavid king, ruling Ghazni, the first and main Ghaznavid capital, for 35 years. In 1148 he was defeated in Ghazni by Saif al-Din Suri, but he recaptured the capital the next year. Ala al-Din Hussein, a Ghorid king, conquered the city in 1151, for the revenge of his brother Qutb-ud-Din's death, who was son-in-law of the king but was publicly punished and killed for a minor offense. Ala al-Din Hussein then razed the city and burned it for 7 days, after which he became known as Jahan-Suz. Ghazni was restored to the Ghaznavids by the intervention of the Seljuks, who came to the aid of Bahram. Ghaznavid struggles with the Ghurids continued in subsequent years as they nibbled away at Ghaznavid territory, and Ghazni and Zabulistan was lost to a group of Oghuz Turks before captured by the Ghurids. Ghaznavid power in northwestern India continued until the Ghurid conquest of Lahore from Khusrau Malik in 1186. Military and tactics. The core of the Ghaznavid army was primarily made up of Turks, as well as thousands of native Afghans who were trained and assembled from the area south of the Hindu Kush in what is now Afghanistan. During the rule of Sultan Mahmud, a new, larger military training center was established in Bast. This area was known for blacksmiths where war weapons were made. After capturing and conquering the Punjab region, the Ghaznavids began to employ Hindu Indians in its army. Like the other dynasties that rose out of the remains of the Abbasid Caliphate, the Ghaznavid administrative traditions and military practice came from the Abbasids. There were, however, unique changes adopted that met the demands of the geographic situation of the Ghaznavid dynasty. Due to their access to the Indus-Ganges plains, the Ghaznavids, during the 11th and 12th centuries, developed the first Muslim army to use war elephants in battle. The elephants were protected by armor plating on the fronts. The use of these elephants in other regions that the Ghaznavids fought in, particularly in Central Asia, to which the elephant was a foreign weapon. State and culture. According to Clifford Edmund Bosworth, the Ghaznavid sultans were ethnically Turkish, but the sources, all in Arabic or Persian, do not allow us to estimate the persistence of Turkish practices and ways of thought amongst them. Yet given the fact that the essential basis of the Ghaznavids' military support always remained their Turkish soldiery, there must always have been a need to stay attuned to their troops' needs and aspirations. Also, there are indications of the persistence of some Turkish literary culture under the early Ghaznavids. The sources do make it clear, however, that the Sultan's exercise of political power and the administrative apparatus which gave it shape came very speedily to be within the Perso-Islamic tradition of statecraft and monarchical rule, with the ruler as a distant figure, buttressed by divine favor, ruling over a mass of traders, artisans, peasants, etc., whose prime duty was obedience in all respects but above all in the payment of taxes. The fact that the personnel of the bureaucracy which directed the day-to-day running of the state, and which raised the revenue to support the Sultan's lifestyle and to finance the professional army, were Persians who carried on the administrative traditions of the Samanids, only strengthened this conception of secular power. Persianization of the state apparatus was accompanied by the Persianization of high culture at the Ghaznavid court. The level of literary creativity was just as high under Ibrahim and his successors up to Bahram Shah, with such poets as Abul Faraj Runi, Sanai, Othman Mokhtara, Masudi Sadi Salman, and Sayyid Hasan Ghaznavi. We know from the biographical dictionaries of poets that the court in Lahore of Khusrau Malik had an array of fine poets, none of whose divans has unfortunately survived, and the translator into elegant Persian prose of Ibn Mokaffar S. Khalilawad, namely Abul Ma'ali Nasir al-Abi Muhammad, served the Sultan for a while as his chief secretary. The Ghaznavids thus present the phenomenon of a dynasty of Turkish slave origin which became culturally Persianized to a perceptibly higher degree than other contemporary dynasties of Turkish origin such as Seljuks and Karakhanids. Persian literary culture enjoyed a renaissance under the Ghaznavids during the 11th century. The Ghaznavid court was so renowned for its support of Persian literature that the poet Faruqi traveled from his home province to work for them. The poet Anshuri's short collection of poetry was dedicated to Sultan Mahmud and his brothers Nasir and Yaqub. Another poet of the Ghaznavid court, Manuchehri, wrote numerous poems to the merits and advantages of drinking wine. Sultan Mahmud, modeling the Samanid Bukhara as a cultural center, made Ghazni into a center of learning, inviting Ferdowsi and al-Biruni. He even attempted to persuade Avicenna, but was refused. Mahmud preferred that his fame and glory be publicized in Persian, and hundreds of poets assembled at his court. He brought whole libraries from Rayy and Isfahan to Ghazni and even demanded that the Khwarezm Shah court send its men of learning to Ghazni. Due to his invasion of Rayy and Isfahan, Persian literary production was inaugurated in Azerbaijan and Iraq. The Ghaznavids continued to develop historical writing in Persian that had been initiated by their predecessors, the Samanid Empire. The historian Abul Fadl al-Bayhaqi's Tarikh-i-Bayhaqi, written in the latter half of the 11th century, is an example. Although the Ghaznavids were of Turkic origin and their military leaders were generally of the same stock, as a result of the original involvement of Sabuktigin and Mahmud of Ghazni in Samanid affairs and in the Samanid cultural environment, the dynasty became thoroughly Persianized, so that in practice one cannot consider their rule over Iran one of the foreign domination. They also copied their administrative system from the Samanids. In terms of cultural championship and the support of Persian poets, they were more Persian than their ethnically Iranian rivals, the Buyid dynasty, whose support of Arabic letters in preference to Persian is well known. Historian Bosworth explains, in fact, with the adoption of Persian administrative and cultural ways, the Ghaznavids threw off their original Turkish steppe background and became largely integrated with the Perso-Islamic tradition. As a result, Ghazni developed into a great center of Arabic learning. With Sultan Mahmud's invasions of North India, Persian culture was established at Lahore, which later produced the famous poet, Masood Sad Sulman. Lahore, under the Ghaznavid rule in the 11th century, attracted Persian scholars from Khorasan, India and Central Asia and became a major Persian cultural center. It was also during Mahmud's reign that Ghaznavid coinage began to have bilingual legends consisting of Arabic and Devanagari script. The Persian culture, established by the Ghaznavids in Ghazna and eastern Afghanistan, survived the Ghurid invasion in the 12th century and endured until the invasion of the Mongols. Legacy. At its height, the Ghaznavid Empire grew to cover large parts of present-day Iran, Turkmenistan, and Uzbekistan, all of Afghanistan, Pakistan, and large parts of northwest India. The Ghaznavid rulers are generally credited with spreading Islam into the Indian subcontinent. In addition to the wealth accumulated through raiding Indian cities, and exacting tribute from Indian Rajas, the Ghaznavids also benefited from their position as an intermediary along the trade routes between China and the Mediterranean. They were, however, unable to hold power for long, and by 1040 the Seljuks had taken over their Persian domains, and a century later the Ghurids took over their remaining subcontinental lands. The Nashir Khans are said to be the descendants of the Ghaznavid dynasty. List of rulers. Family tree of the Ghaznavid sultans.